Kingdom partners and supporters. 2020 has been a year like no other for every single one of us. I want to start by recognizing that this year has been harder on some of you than others. Some of you have lost employment this year. Some of you have lost a close friend or maybe even a loved one. And this pandemic is still continuing on. 2020 has been a difficult year for ministry leaders and churches, as I heard recently that more pastors have quit ministry this year than perhaps any prior year. And many churches across the country have had to shut their doors permanently as a result of 2020. Now, there have also been some good things that have come out of this year, so please don't mishear me. This has given the church broadly a chance to reevaluate and reprioritize its purpose and its mission and ask itself questions like, what do we do as a church? How are we a church? What does it mean to be a church in our particular location? In my case, the city of Portland. And it's given us an opportunity to reprioritize our vision and mission and really get back to the basics of our faith and make it about making disciples that make disciples rather than by a group that's gathering on Sundays for 60 minutes once a week. Now, I'm going to try to keep this update brief as I know that your inbox is bombarded this time of year, but I want to provide you with a recap of just what this year has looked like for us in the city of Portland and at Sojourn Church, and to remind you of our calling and why it is that we here. And I want to leave you with our vision as we move into a new year in just a few days. In January, as the year started, we started out with a fresh vision. And to be honest with you, there had been conflict that kind of carried over from 2019, and it all imploded in January. Although it was tough. It was extremely tough on me. It was tough on the church, and it meant that we lost some people. But almost a year later, I look back on that and realize that we are just much healthier as a church as a result, even though that was a painful experience to go through. And then February rolled around, and Concordia University, which our neighborhood is named after, and it's in the heart of our neighborhood, announced their permanent closure after 115 years in Portland. We mourned and ministered to the staff and the students, and we still have contact with many of them today, but we knew that meant many of those students who called Sojourn their church would be leaving the city and maybe to never return. And then we entered the month of March. Oh, how we all would love to forget March as the coronavirus officially hit the United States and hit the Pacific Northwest. We quickly went into our shelter in place that quite literally affected every area of life. Children still have not yet returned to in-person school since last March. And as a church, we quickly pivoted by actually helping another church plant in our city that was without a pastor, and they needed an interim pastor. And we decided to join together for 6 months of 2020 where I led both churches. In April and May, as we moved into the spring months, we let our community know through handwritten cards and social media ads that we were available to assist with grocery pickup, with pharmacy runs, with prayer, just anything that we could do to serve as a church. We volunteered weekly at a food pantry that serves 300 to 500 families per week. We help pay rent and provide groceries for some of the members of Sojourn. In June and August, as we got into the early summer months, we transitioned to church in the park. Everyone kind of had Zoom fatigue, as I'm sure you can all relate, and you're probably all shaking your heads now. So we started doing church in the park. And then we joined other churches all over the city of Portland to lament, to listen, to learn and love in action after the murder of George Floyd. Protests were nightly in the city of Portland, and in the summer months we were at 90 plus days of protest in our city. Typically those are in downtown, and then the second kind of hot area for the protests were actually about a mile from my house where I'm sitting at this moment. And that we as a church, we felt the best use of our time was to cry out to God in prayer alongside other churches for the change that our city and nation seeks and needs. Because the reality is that the hope that our world is longing for, those groanings, those pains that we see and that we hear in all these news stories, there's only one solution, and that solution is in the person and work of Jesus Christ. As we moved into the kind of late summer, early fall, in the month of September, we wrapped up our church in the park summer months with our friends Eastbridge Church, and we laid hands on them and commissioned them and sent them back to Southeast Portland to reestablish themselves, and they're kind of still in that process now. Wildfires hit Oregon at an unprecedented rate, and our air quality was some of the worst in the world for major cities for almost an entire week. And so we took up a special offering for fire victims, and then immediately, even though the air quality was so bad, we volunteered at a local food pantry that was providing food and clothing and shoes and then even shelter for families who had to escape from different parts of Oregon. Thankfully, the fires themselves never reached the city of Portland, but once again, our air quality was so bad that we were still affected by the fires that were happening around us. As we moved into the fall months in October and November, the weather turns cooler here, as it does in most places in the country, and the rain starts moving into the city. And so we return to what I call a hybrid form of gatherings, where we would offer a component indoors, almost more like a watch party, and then for those that were comfortable, and then we would do most of our gatherings online. We are in an area that is extremely cautious and fearful in some cases, and so not many people are willing to actually meet indoors, even with masks being worn. So I know that many of you are in other parts of the country, and some of you said things are almost normal, and some of you have had to go back and forth, and here people just have never really been comfortable enough to even do that. And so Church in the Park was awesome for us, but returning indoors has been a challenge. And our leadership determined that going forward into the rest of 2020 and even now into 2021, that we have to offer an online component to every single thing that we do. Now, for a church like ours, we had zero online component before this pandemic, so it's not always easy, but we are managing to offer our gatherings online. We're starting to offer our group online, and just anything that we can do that we're saying, hey, there's a way you can be part of this, even if you aren't physically able or ready to do it in person. Our gospel community this fall went through a 6-week course called Undivided that's put out by Sin Network, and the idea is going through looking at the church and racial reconciliation, and it just gave us an opportunity to kind of do a self-inspection on us individually and as a church, and just see areas of growth and change and where we can be a voice for some of the most vulnerable in our country. We continue to help meet the needs of those in our community as we came across them. And then Oregon in November re-entered into a 4-week freeze. And so we've never officially left phase 1. As of even now, we're still in phase 1. And so we entered this 4-week freeze where life almost looked like it did back in March, where we were just kind of at this shelter in place. And it has greatly impacted the church. It's been kind of back and forth on what we're allowed to do and how large our gatherings can be. And at one point we were in this 4-week freeze. I think the maximum we would even be allowed to have in the space that we used was at 10 people. It would be capped out. And so it just makes it really, really hard and really challenging to make these decisions on knowing what to do. And then we entered into the month of December, where we are now, just a few short days away from January. And we took a break from the series that we were currently doing, which was on the Sermon on the Mount, and we entered into the book of Ruth, an Old Testament story, an amazing, wonderful short story if you've never studied it in depth. And really what it points to is us seeing our Redeemer. And some of the takeaways is that Israel was one of their darkest, lowest points in their history. It's kind of the backdrop for the book of Ruth, but yet we see this hope, and it's pointing to this coming Redeemer. And so it was very easy to kind of transition, say, look where we are right now as a city and as a nation, at this place that we might feel like we're at our lowest low, yet there is still hope because, one, we just celebrated Advent, that the coming Redeemer has come the first time, but he is coming again. And this is the hope that we were able to offer those around the city of Portland. We had a couple of unique outreach opportunities, which were both designed by one of our most faithful members of the last 2 years. And so as a leader of Sojourn Church, that was probably my biggest takeaway for the month of December, is that there was 2 outreach components that looked unique, things that we had never done before, and I didn't organize either one of them. I wasn't really involved with them at all other than showing up and participating. One of those was there's a nursing home in our neighborhood called Fernhill Estates. There's about 40 residents, and as you probably can guess, they haven't been allowed to have family or any visitors for that matter this year. And so we, through some neighborhood connections, we were asked if we would be willing to write cards of just encouragement and Christmas cheer to them, and then provide them with socks and gloves and things that you provide for an elderly family member who lives in a nursing home. And so we did that, and then we also said, why don't we provide stuff for the 40 people who also work there? I mean, they've got a really hard job taking care of these elderly people who are family members of others in our community. And so we also provided them with cards and with some gifts as well. So what was really cool is, one, it was organized by someone at Sojourn, and it was a Sojourn Church outreach, but we also invited the community. Our neighborhood paper featured an article on us, and then others in the community also participated in that event. The second thing we did was caroling. Just kind of old school caroling, went around the neighborhood. It was just a couple of the families from the church, and we did it at a social distance, kind of 6 to 8 feet apart from one another. But it was great just to walk around our community, just the streets that we've come to know and love, and just to sing some carols at different houses. We had one lady who we didn't actually sing at her house. She just saw us walking with a guitar and singing, and she said, this is just amazing. You guys have just made my day just seeing this. And so just trying to bring some of that, kind of that holiday cheer, but in the name of Jesus through Sojourn Church to the neighborhood. And then we're finishing our month with our Christmas missions offering. Every year, right at the end of the year, we love to do a Christmas missions offering. And most of this money, not all of it, most of it will go completely to overseas missions. But this year we took the bold and kind of radical decision, especially given this year, and just said every dime that comes in internally, for those who call Sojourn Church home, will go towards this offering. So we have asked our people to be generous, to go above and beyond their normal giving, but we said anything that comes in this month, we will just go ahead and give it outside the walls of our church. We're going to use a percentage of that to bless a new church planter who's going to be planting in the Pacific Northwest in 2021. We're going to use a percentage of that to partner with a group called Every Child that works with the DHS department and the foster care system here in our city. And then once again, the majority of that will go overseas to partner with the International Mission Board. And we have one family in particular who's from Portland, who are missionaries in London, who we are partnering with and looking forward to growing that partnership. And so that's how we are finishing this month. Now, this week I read a book. I actually got this book for Christmas called Uncommon Ground. And in this book, it reminded me that the Sermon on the Mount, what Sojourn happens to be studying, we took a break for Advent, we'll be jumping back in about 2 weeks, that Jesus calls each one of us to live out our faith, to be the salt of the earth in places that needs God's light the most, places that will most likely require entrepreneurial effort on our part. So speaking of the Sermon on the Mount, Dr. Anthony Bradley, he said the application for this understanding of salt as fertilizer is that Christians are called to go where nothing is growing right now and help bring new life. He says Christians are not here to merely season or preserve the world from decay. The followers of Jesus Christ are sent on a mission to stimulate growth in the parts of the world that are barren and to be mixed into the manure piles of the world so that God can use that fertilizer to bring new virtuous life. As I read that paragraph, I could not think of a better description of imagery of why it is that we are in Portland. You've all seen the news. Portland has been featured a lot, and the news never tells the full story, but it does tell part of the story. But what I will say is that all the texts that you have sent and the phone calls you have given and the emails, they're all appreciated. As you check on us, as you've reminded us and let us know that you're praying for us, and as you've let us know that metaphorically speaking, you are holding from the other side. Many have shared this year that there's no way they would want to live in the city of Portland because it is a godless place. It's full of leftist liberals and homelessness. I get the sentiment. And if I'm completely honest, I feel that way myself some days. There's days that I look for the exit and I want to leave. But then I'm reminded that this is my city. This is my mission field. This is where God has called my family and those who call Sojourn their church because of these needs. Yes, 2020 has revealed a lot about my city. But those things were there all along. It was just waiting for the perfect storm that happened to be 2020 to bring those things to the surface. And so my hope is that this year, supporters of Sojourn Church, that maybe you have a little better understanding of what it looks like to live and minister in the least religious, most atheistic city in our nation. Jeremiah 29:7, it reminds us to seek the welfare of the city where I've sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. This is why I'm here. This is why my family is here. This is why Sojourn exists, and this is why you partner with us. We want to thank every single one of you for praying for us, for encouraging us, and for those of you who are able supporting us financially. Your prayers matter. Your encouragement matters, and your financial contributions, they are making a difference. And so as we get ready for 2021, we are hopeful for the future because our hope rests in Jesus Christ. Yes, 2020 has been a difficult year for our church plant, and it feels like we have lost all of our momentum, but we refuse to allow 2020 to define us. We are at a rebuilding phase as a church, as we're already talking with people and kind of actively recruiting people to join our team as we rebuild, because we know that God has a purpose for us and that we are not done in this city. We are talking with 2 large established churches in the metro on what it looks like for them to partner with us, similar to how your churches partner with us on the East Coast, because they care about us and they don't only want to see us survive, they want to see us thrive in the city. And we at Sojourn Church are committed to seeking the welfare of the city where God has sent us as sojourners. We live in an area where 85 to 95% of people have zero interest in attending a church service of any kind. Now, this is pre-pandemic. And honestly, I know in some parts of the country, churches are growing and people are looking there. In our city, that still has not been the case, at least not in our experience. And so we're in a city where people really have zero interest in attending a church service or a small group of any kind. But one of the things that we're going to do, and it really hit us this month, and we did that outreach to Fernhill Estates, that it was our church who led this, but we invited the community to partner with us, and many people did. And so one of the things as we move into this new year is we're going to take out monthly ads in our neighborhood paper that goes to 10,000 plus residents, and we're going to pick different partners. We're going to partner with the Portland Rescue Mission and maybe do a blanket or a coat drive. We're going to partner with Every Child and do a diaper drive. We're going to partner with our local elementary school, maybe do a backpack drive, but do many of these things that we've already been doing, but do them in a kind of a different creative way where we advertise in the paper, and then we invite the community to join us in that, because what we realize is that although a church gathering is not the first intersection that they will have with the church, but they will partner because people in our city do care about giving coats to the homeless. They care about giving blankets to those who are going to sleep out in our streets on cold nights. They care about giving diapers to kids who are in the foster care system. They care about giving backpacks to the children at the elementary schools. And so what we're going to do is we're going to invite the community to partner with a church. And so over time, as we build those relationships, in turn, we will see them hopefully being discipled towards Jesus from the members of Sojourn Church. And so I want to finish by saying thank you so much for partnering with us in 2020. We know that it has not been an easy year. It has been hard to partner. We have lost some financial supporters, but we honestly understand that. It's been a year where people have lost employment, where people have lost. So we understand that and we totally get that. But we do ask for those of you who are able to prayerfully consider making a year-end donation, because your donation, it matters. It helps us seek the welfare of the city where God has sent us. It helps us seek the welfare of the city that God has called you to partner with. And it will help propel us into 2021 as we go after this vision of continuing to invite every single person in the city of Portland to take a journey, a sojourn of learning what it means to follow Jesus and to follow him faithfully. You can go to our website, sojournpdx.org, /give, or if you just go to sojournpdx.org, you'll find the give tab. It'll give you instructions on how you can go about giving your gift. There's instructions on doing a physical check in the mail if you like. It does need to be postmarked by December 31st, or you can just give through our online platform. Yes, your dollars are tax deductible for those of you that matters. And so we thank you for partnering with us. We thank you for considering this, and we look forward to seeing what this partnership looks like as we move into 2021. Thank you, Sojourn Church supporters. God bless.